Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to be here with you. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating topic of respiration in human beings. This is part of our Class 10 science series on life processes. We'll understand how our body transforms food into energy, a vital process for our survival. Over the next few slides, we'll cover the basics of respiration, how it happens in our bodies, and why it's so important. So, let's get started and dive into this interesting subject. So, what is respiration? Well, respiration is a vital biological process that happens inside our bodies. It's how our cells break down glucose, which comes from the food we eat, to release the energy we need for everything we do. This includes thinking, moving, growing, and even repairing tissues. What's really important to understand is that this process isn't just a one-time event. It happens continuously in every single cell of your body. That's what keeps you alive and active throughout the day. Now, let's look at the chemical side of things. When we talk about respiration in words, it's like this. Glucose plus oxygen produces carbon dioxide, water, and energy. This energy is what powers all your bodily functions. So, in essence, respiration is the process that provides the energy needed for life, and it's happening inside you every moment. Now, let's take a closer look at the two main types of respiration. First, we have aerobic respiration, which is the process that requires oxygen to happen. In this process, the body completely breaks down glucose, which allows us to produce the maximum amount of energy, 38 ATP molecules from a single glucose molecule. This form of respiration occurs in most animals and humans, primarily inside the mitochondria, which are often called the powerhouses of the cell. On the other hand, there's anaerobic respiration. This process happens without oxygen, meaning the body can still generate energy when oxygen is scarce. However, because the breakdown of glucose is incomplete here, it produces much less energy, just 2 ATP molecules per glucose. Examples include yeast fermentation and muscle cells during intense exercise, when oxygen supply can't keep up with demand. Anaerobic respiration also creates different byproducts, like lactic acid in muscles, which can lead to fatigue. It's important to understand that while our bodies mainly rely on aerobic respiration, we switch to anaerobic respiration when oxygen levels are limited during vigorous activity. This flexibility helps us continue functioning even under challenging conditions, and it ties into our overall understanding of how energy is produced and used in the body. Let's talk about what happens in your muscles during intense exercise. When you're pushing yourself hard, your muscles need a lot more energy. Sometimes, the oxygen supply can't keep up with that demand, and that's when anaerobic respiration kicks in. Instead of using oxygen, your muscles break down glucose directly to produce energy, but this process also creates lactic acid as a byproduct. That buildup of lactic acid is what causes that burning sensation in your muscles and can lead to cramps. It's a clear signal that your muscles are fatigued and need a break. After exercise, activities like massage or a warm bath can help increase blood flow. This helps remove the accumulated lactic acid and eases muscle soreness naturally. Understanding this process helps us appreciate how our bodies respond to intense physical activity and recover afterwards. Let's take a closer look at the human respiratory system. Starting at the entry point, we have the nostrils. This is where air enters our body, and it's equipped with tiny hairs that help filter out dust and particles, keeping our lungs cleaner. Moving inward, the next structure is the nasal cavity, which plays a vital role in warming and moistening the incoming air. This process helps protect the delicate tissues in our lungs from cold or dry air, which could potentially cause damage. From there, air passes into the pharynx, a sort of gateway that connects the nasal cavity to the larynx. The pharynx serves as a pathway for air to travel deeper into our respiratory system. Continuing downward, we reach the larynx, commonly known as the voice box. This is where our vocal cords are located, allowing us to produce sound and speak. Below the larynx is the trachea, or windpipe. The trachea is reinforced with C-shaped cartilage rings, which are crucial because they prevent the windpipe from collapsing when we breathe in or out. From the trachea, the air splits into two main branches called the bronchi, each leading into one lung. These bronchi further divide into smaller tubes called bronchioles, which spread throughout the lungs much like the branches of a tree. Finally, at the very end of these tiny pathways are the alveoli, tiny air sacs numbering around 300 million in total. These alveoli are where the crucial gas exchange happens. Oxygen from the air passes into our blood, and carbon dioxide is removed from the blood to be exhaled. Understanding this pathway helps us appreciate how efficiently our respiratory system works to supply oxygen to our body and remove waste gases, which is fundamental to our overall health and well-being. Let's walk through the journey of air as it travels through your body. It all starts at the nostrils, where air enters your respiratory system. From there, it moves into the nasal cavity, which plays a crucial role in filtering out particles and warming the air to make it more suitable for your lungs. Next, the air passes through the pharynx, a pathway that connects your mouth and nose to your larynx, or voice box. The larynx not only helps with speech, but also guides the air downward. Then comes the trachea, often called the windpipe, which delivers the air down toward your lungs. At the point where the trachea splits, you'll find the bronchi. These are like the main branches that lead into each lung. Inside the lungs, these bronchi further divide into smaller branches called bronchioles, spreading the airflow throughout the lung tissue. At the very end of these tiny branches are the alveoli, tiny air sacs where the critical process of gas exchange happens. This is where oxygen gets transferred into your blood, and carbon dioxide is removed. And here's the amazing part. This entire journey happens with every breath you take. In fact, you breathe about 20,000 times a day. The respiratory system works so seamlessly that it ensures every cell in your body gets the oxygen it needs to function properly. It's a remarkable system that keeps you alive and energized, constantly supporting your overall health and well-being. Let's take a closer look at how breathing works. When you inhale or breathe in, your diaphragm muscle contracts and moves downward. Imagine it flattening out like a stretched drumhead. This movement creates more space in your chest cavity. At the same time, the rib muscles contract, pulling the ribs upward and outward, which further increases the space. As a result, the volume inside your chest expands, and this causes the air pressure inside your lungs to decrease below the atmospheric pressure outside. Because of this pressure difference, air naturally rushes into your lungs to equalize the pressure, bringing in oxygen. Now, when you exhale or breathe out, the process reverses. The diaphragm relaxes and moves back upward, returning to its dome shape. The rib muscles relax too, allowing your ribs to move downward and inward. This decreases the volume of your chest cavity, which compresses your lungs. As a result, the air pressure inside your lungs rises above the atmospheric pressure, pushing the air out to balance things out again. This entire cycle of expansion and contraction happens automatically, without you needing to think about it. Your brain stem controls this rhythm, ensuring you get a continuous supply of oxygen without conscious effort. It's a beautifully coordinated process that keeps us alive and energized every day. Now let's take a closer look at how gas exchange happens in the alveoli. When we breathe in, fresh, oxygen-rich air reaches the alveoli, which are these tiny air sacs in our lungs. Here, the oxygen concentration is really high, creating the perfect environment for diffusion. Oxygen molecules then pass through the very thin walls of the alveoli and enter the surrounding blood capillaries. This process is driven by concentration gradients. Molecules naturally move from areas of high concentration to low, so oxygen moves into the blood where it's needed. Once in the blood, red blood cells containing hemoglobin bind to the oxygen, effectively capturing it for transport throughout the entire body. This is crucial because it ensures our tissues get the oxygen they need to function properly. At the same time, carbon dioxide, which is a waste product produced by our cells, is being released from the blood back into the alveoli. This happens through reverse diffusion, again following the concentration gradient. CO2 moves from the blood, where its concentration is high, into the alveoli, where it's low. Finally, during exhalation, this carbon dioxide is expelled from the alveoli out of the body, completing this essential cycle of gas exchange. A key point to remember is that this entire process is incredibly efficient thanks to the large surface area of the alveoli, about 70 square meters, making sure oxygen gets in and CO2 gets out quickly and effectively. Let's take a closer look at how our cells produce energy inside the mitochondria, often called the powerhouse of the cell. These tiny organelles are where the real magic happens when it comes to energy conversion. First, glucose from the food we eat enters the mitochondria through the bloodstream. Once inside, it's not just sitting there. It's actively broken down through a series of enzymatic reactions. Think of this process as a complex but well-orchestrated breakdown that transforms the glucose into usable energy. As this breakdown occurs, energy is released. But instead of just wasting it, our cells capture and store this energy as ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. This molecule is essentially the currency of energy in our bodies. It powers everything, from moving muscles to thinking and even basic cellular functions. A really interesting fact is that one molecule of glucose can produce up to 38 ATP molecules through aerobic respiration. And to put that into perspective, your body produces and uses about your entire body weight in ATP every single day. That's how tirelessly your cells work to keep you alive, active, and functioning smoothly. So, in essence, every time you breathe, move, or think, you're relying on the incredible process happening inside those mitochondria to keep your energy levels up. Let's talk about the key takeaways regarding respiration in humans. First, the respiratory system is a complete and integrated system, starting from the nostrils and extending all the way to the alveoli in the lungs. This seamless connection ensures that oxygen is efficiently delivered to every cell in our body. Next, there are two main types of respiration. Aerobic respiration, which occurs in the presence of oxygen, produces the maximum amount of energy our bodies need. On the other hand, anaerobic respiration happens without oxygen and provides quick, but limited, energy. Think of it as a backup when oxygen is scarce. Now, the breathing mechanism itself is quite fascinating. It relies on the movement of the diaphragm and ribs, which create pressure changes inside the chest cavity. These pressure changes automatically drive air in and out of our lungs without us even thinking about it. Once oxygen reaches our cells, mitochondria come into play. They convert glucose and oxygen into ATP. This is the universal energy currency that powers nearly every process happening in our bodies. And here's an important reminder. Every single breath you take is part of an intricate biological process that has evolved over millions of years. Understanding respiration not only helps us appreciate how complex and efficient our bodies are, but also how vital this process is to our very existence.